Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, it is Transformation Tuesday over at Loving Me Before I Love You, the podcast where we stop performing, start healing, and choose ourselves on purpose. Hi, I am your host. I am Coach Tammy Nicole. I help women reclaim their voice, their worth, and their power so that they can stand in clarity, confidence, and courage. Today, we're tackling a topic that so many women wrestle with, but don't always recognize, and that is the truth about independence versus isolation. Independence is the ability to stand on your own. It's confidence. It's self-sufficient. It's knowing and navigating life with strength and resilience. But isolation, on the other hand, is a little different. Isolation is when self-protection quietly becomes self-imprisonment. It's when I don't need anybody becomes the walls that keep love, support, and accountability and connection on the outside. The truth is this: many of us didn't choose isolation because we wanted to be alone. We chose it because we're somewhere along the way, trusting people became painful. We learned that depending on others could lead to disappointment, abandonment, or heartbreak. So, what do? We convinced ourselves that doing everything alone was the safest option. But healing isn't about becoming less independent. It's actually about becoming emotionally available enough to receive what you've been carrying all by yourself in a healthy, whole way. So joining me for this important conversation, I have certified life coach Jayna Palmer, who helps people recognize the difference between healthy independence and unhealthy isolation. Together, we're going to unpack how our past shapes the ways we connect, why vulnerability feels risky. So guess what I want you to do? I want you to sit back, grab your journal. You know what to do. Get your pen out, grab your coffee, and let's jump into it. Because guess what? If you ever found yourself saying, "I've got it," while secretly wishing someone would simply ask how you're doing, this conversation is for you. Welcome to the show, Jayna. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on today.
I'm super excited. Super excited.
Yes, so am I. And this conversation is so much needed.
I think a lot of us do forget that there is a difference between being independent and actually isolating. I think we tend to do one and not really understand the impact of the other.
That is
because
so
we're
true.
Doing it from a standpoint of routine.
Yes, that is so true.
So tell me a little bit about your work as a life coach and how you help. I don't know if you're working with just women, but how do you help people understand the difference between isolation and independence?
I do work with primarily women, and the difference between the independence and isolation is avoidance, in my opinion. And we get so dependent that we can do it all ourselves and I don't need anybody else's help. And so we forget that community is needed and that other people are needed in order to help thrive. We isolate because we don't want to deal with the mess. We isolate, we avoid situations because we're mad, we're upset, or the pride has just taught us so much that we have to do it on our own and that you can't ask for anybody for help. That I got this. And we forget that it's okay to ask for help. And we isolate when we're not doing that performance that we believe that we should be doing. Not necessarily that somebody else believes, but it's our own belief within ourselves.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times, I don't know, I can just think back to like for myself, right? Growing up and even in my adult years, we can have friends or people that we know, that we may consider to be a friend because, we enjoy their energy, etc. And you feel like you can talk to them. And when you talk to them, you may not really hold back who you are. But a lot of times we can just be in a space of nobody checks on me, right? You can be in the space of, this relationship probably would dissolve itself if I never reached out again.
Yes.
And a lot of that energy sends you into isolation because it's not that you want to do it all by yourself. You haven't connected with people that says they'll do life with you and mean it. They're there when it's convenient.
That is so true. Convenience over, and it makes it easy because when you're no longer in that space and you're ready to grow, then you'll isolate yourself because you just don't want to be around that same stuff.
Mhm.
And it's harder as we get older to want to create the new circles or to meet the new people. Or you'll feel, or, oh, I just don't have the time. Instead
Mhm.
of making the time because everything is supposed to grow. So I relate it to like, just growing a plant. It takes time, nutrients, you got to water that thing in order for things to grow. And you cut off the old plants, the old leaves, you cut them down, trim them off, and we do the cut down, trim off, but then we don't refertilize ourselves.
That is so true. I can think back to a clip. I don't know who said it, so don't you guys go say I'm taking somebody's stuff because I'm not. However, and think back to the clip of someone talking about we are prideful around the word loyalty. Like, I'm loyal, I stick around, I'll do X, Y, and Z. And they started to give the analogy of a tree when you just said that. And it made me think about it from a standpoint of even trees let go of their leaves that they themselves nurtured from the roots through the branches to develop. But when the season is over, it's over. They must go in order for the tree to stay alive.
Yes.
So it's about knowing the seasons of when people in your life have to shift or get removed or what have you. The only thing that stays with the tree is the trunk and the branches. So some of us need to find branches as friends instead of the leaves and calling them friends because those leaves are supposed to wither away every fall. They got to go.
Yes. That is so good. That is a perfect analogy right there.
When you look at independence, right? The common thread on independence is that it's a healthy and an amazing thing for us as Black women, right? We're taught, you know, be independent, handle things on your own. You don't need nobody. Figure it out by yourself. And we look at that as like supposed to be this grand trophy, hold up your crown, keep it moving. What's your thoughts on independence as a whole?
I believe that we were taught wrong. independence is good in some way, but if you even think about it, in the Bible, man was not created to be alone, right? They ended up having a helpmeet. So independence is only good for so much before you need community. You need people to help lift you up. You need that encouragement. And we took it just too far into being independent that you got to do everything on your own. I remember my dad saying, you know, grow up 18, you're done. And he was like, you helped teach me that parents are still needed even after children grow up. You know, you're not done just because you reached 18. You're not out on your own. Not saying that you have to have somebody coddle you like a baby, but you do need people to help you grow, to help you with your creative ideas, you know,
Yeah.
just to grow out of it. And we did just too much in our community and our culture with independence. Like, I know a woman who expects the 2-year-old to be able to follow all instructions and you know, use the bathroom, clean up after themselves, all types of stuff. And it's like, wow, where are we going wrong with independence versus, you know, helping guide people and culture people? And unfortunately, that's happening too much. I see it around too much, just in my community. What are we expecting of these, you know, 2-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds? You're expecting independence like already, like they're not allowed to make mistakes, they're not allowed to not know and not grow. And that's a cultural thing. It's not just, you know, here. I've seen it in other places that I visited, and it's really with our culture is a lot where we want them to grow up and be so independent. We forget that we got to nurture, care, you know, and help raise them to be, yes, independent, but we can't put too much expectations on them. Then they're stuck in that pride of, I got to do it all by myself. And we don't know how to ask for help often.
That's a good point. Asking for help seems to be, I won't say non-existent, but it has been given a shield, a label of weakness. If you're asking for help, you don't know what to do. And that's the truth. I don't know what to do. But why is not knowing what to do more problematic than simply asking for some help from someone who does? You know, it's like you want to shame me versus applaud me when I
Yes.
could have made the biggest mistake of my life that affected you. You know, I could have, instead of asking for help, I could have made a decision and said, you know, asking for help doesn't work because people are going to look at me crazy or they're going to say these things behind my back. So I'm just going to go for what I think I know
Yeah.
and destroy everything
Yes.
and destroy everything. And the next thing that's going to come out of your mouth when I do that is what? Why you didn't ask for nobody's help? Why you didn't ask for
Exactly.
nobody's opinion? We've been doing this for 30 years. You know, we know. And it's like, but when I do ask for your help, you shame me for saying why you didn't go look it up yourself, why you didn't figure it out, why you asking me? Because it seems like asking for help becomes such an inconvenience for the one that's providing the help. And it's a sad experience because we should not have to feel like we have to do it independently. Like we shouldn't feel that way. As you mentioned, everything is about community and connection, which should make things a whole lot easier.
Yes.
But it doesn't. And then you're left with the, I gotta do this by myself.
Yep.
And then once you do it by yourself for so long, you sit, you think, you contemplate, and you say, what is the point of everybody else if I'm gonna do this by myself?
Yes. And then you hold, not that you can blame somebody for helping you, but when you feel like you have to know it all, then when you don't know something, that's
Mm-hmm.
will lead you into further isolation because, oh, I don't know, so I'm not going to show up. I don't know, so I'm not going to go around here. I don't know. Like I couldn't make it here. I don't want to hear you talk about me. So I'm just going to isolate instead. And it's causes a toxic cycle. It doesn't help you grow.
At 100%. It's almost like too much independence can lead to isolation, which can create depression and all of these other things in the same little wavelength. But it is better to be independent than to isolate.
Yes. And it is, because when you're independent and you're not isolating, you know how to walk into rooms that nobody else is going in there with you. So, I've taken a trip and I traveled across the United States to Atlanta by myself because I wanted to go to a new room. So I was being independent and I drove, 20 hours by myself to get to Georgia because I knew I needed to be in a different room. So that's independent, not isolation. Isolation would have been like, okay, I can't go there. I don't want to be around these other people anymore. So let me just sit in the room and not do anything, not learn anything new. I believe independence will cause you to want to grow. So you'll go and do things on your own, and instead of waiting for other people to show up where they may never show up. It's like we're waiting for those dead leaves to put themselves back on the branch, and you can't do that. So yes, you do need independence because there's some places you're only going to get to on your own without having other people walk with you. But once you get to that new spot, you can now walk with other people. So you're not isolating. You're walking in independence so you can walk towards a greater freedom or a greater future or greater purpose for yourself.
I love that. If you were talking to a client who is going through this exact thing of battling between the independence and the isolation, what would be some of the steps that you would actually teach them to go through to not be stuck?
I teach the TAP method. So T, truth. What is the truth of your situation? What is the truth of what you want? Where the truth of where you've been? And then you got to make a decision from there. And then A, be aware. You have to be aware of where you were, where you're going, and where you are now. And that's just to be aware. You don't have to really make a decision. First, you need to be aware before you can make a decision. Don't just jump from one to the other, because that's also how we get stuck. And then P, pivot. Start pivoting, making one different decision, one step at a time. So if you're not ready to be, drive to Georgia like I did, take a 20-hour, but how about just go to the library by yourself? Just go for a walk by yourself. You could take little steps to build up your independence the way that it needs to be, in a healthy way, before you try to take on something big.
So I definitely agree that it does need to be healthy. When you were talking, my thoughts were going into the space of being self-aware, self-assured, and secure are the things that we should be aiming for outside of independence versus isolation. I think a lot of us don't know ourselves enough. And that's why we deem the independence, or we fall into isolation. Because if we ever took the time to do the things by ourselves, like solo dating, or, having lunch by yourself, going to the movies alone, taking a walk in the park, being able to sit with your thoughts.
Yes.
Not too many of us do that. Not too many of us even know why we think what we think. We just, oh my God, I need to breathe. It's just too much. I'm doing everything on my own. I don't have any assistant. Because
And
we've been
part of
doing.
that, yes, part of that is when we're independent, what I realized in myself and working with other people is that, yes, we're independent, but in that independence, we're also trying to wrap our identity up in the people around us. So you're not really as independent as you think, because you're still, trying to wrap your identity around your family or the
Mhm.
peer group or the teachers or somebody else, because in a way, we all seek a community, to a relationship. And but are we seeking out a healthy relationship if you can't walk in independence? Because that is one key. In order to be able, you have to be able to set boundaries, and you can't do that when you're in isolation, because we're in isolation to hide. So that's
Mhm.
the difference between, independence and isolation too. We're there to hide. We think we're so independent, but then we go in isolation because, oh, that person doesn't like me anymore. I disappointed my parents, or I didn't live up to that false expectation that you may not have even wanted in the first place. You just took it on because that's just what you were told to do, right? Even in families, my I was the oddball in my family. So everybody in my family went to this one high school called Lincoln High. And I'm the first one who went to a completely different high school, Southeast. And so I was made fun of for not wanting to go to this high school. I was put down for not wanting to go to this high school, and just little things like that. Like, why do I have to attend the same high school that everybody else went to? Why can't I go to a different high school? And I went to this different high school because I wanted a better education. And I thought that I would get it from this high school versus the other high school. So it was doing something for me, but it was a bad thing according to my family, because everybody in my family went there: cousins, aunts, dad, mom,
Yeah,
everybody. And I was the only one to step out.
you messed
And
up the tradition for them.
yes, like, how dare you?
You know what? That's interesting that you even say that, because I feel like that all ties back into the people pleasing experience that most people have when they're in that isolation versus independent space. It's like learning to make a choice just for you is very
Yeah.
difficult, you know? And so I applaud you for making that choice and not allowing the thoughts of others to sway you into what they wanted, because it wasn't about you. What they wanted was all about them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so many of us are living our lives based upon other people, what they want, when people should be so like in a space of, what do you want? Like, your friends, your family, your connected and like tribe should always be asking, what do you want? It should not be, this is what I would do if I was you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Because we want people to be independent in our culture, but then we still want them to do as we want. And that's why we don't, we go from independence to isolation. That's just one reason, because I don't want to do that. We're taught to
Yeah.
be independent, but then we're so used to the people pleasing, we don't know how to actually stand and walk.
Hey, hope you're feeling the love in today's episode. We'll pick back up where we left off in a moment. First, we're excited to share that Tammy has a collection of self-love t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and journals for you to express how much you love yourself to the world. From comfy hoodies to motivational mugs, there's something for everyone. While you're listening to today's show, feel free to browse the full collection at IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
In that
Yeah.
independence as we should.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's very difficult to even, for some of us, it is difficult to even fathom. It's like one or the other, which is kind of like why I wanted to talk about the differences between them, because it's like I'm either independent and appearing strong to those who I love, or I'm isolating and appearing weak to those that I love. But I'm the one technically unhappy in both circumstances.
That is so true. And so it's about what we need to take more ownership in what we want to do. And that's another thing about the truth and the awareness, awareing who are you pleasing? Are you working towards your own goal or the goals of other people?
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of us think that the goals we have are ours, but they're really other people's because the other person told you about it. The other person confirmed it. The other person validated it. And you just did it because, well, they said it would work, you know?
Yeah.
And when it doesn't, you're left with the pieces, the broken pieces. And they done moved on and went on about the other thing and said, well, I thought so, but I mean, I didn't tell you to do it. I just told you it was a good idea.
Yes. Yes. That is so true.
That is the quick reaction and response. And this is why I always say, you can't live your life based upon what other people want. You have to live your life based upon you. Because in the end, they will be gone doing what the heck they want to do. And you'll be stuck with all the shambled pieces of unsatisfactory unhappiness. Just like saying, why? Why me? Why did I choose this? What was I thinking? It sounded good.
Yes. And that is a sad reality. And I'm also thankful that I came from that, because at one time I was walking in what other people wanted, but not what I wanted. And so when the shift started to happen, I got a lot of, backlash from a lot of people. But the more that I stay consistent in the things that I wanted and the growth and the journey of me, other people chose to come back around.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would like to remind my daughters, one thing I used to always tell them: if you don't like the truth, change. Because we can't change the truth, right? But we can change ourselves to adapt to a better truth. And so I looked at that at my own life and I was like, dang, I'm telling you guys that, but I don't like my reality. And so when I started making those changes, my daughters are like, oh, yeah, that's where mom gets it from, because that's a saying they still use. Like, if you don't like the truth, change, because we only have ourselves to change. We can't change everybody else. We can only change ourselves. So we have to allow people to have their opinions, do their own thing, and not try to control them. We can only control our own actions and reactions.
At 100%, you can only control you, right? I think a lot of times, even in that space of the control, some of us don't know what control feels like unless we're controlling other people.
Yes.
So we don't know how to just control us. We're always looking for a particular outcome or output, but we're looking from outside in versus inside out. So being able to, like, that's why we don't have emotional regulation, because we don't know how to control us. That's why we don't know how to behavior modify appropriately and healthy, because we can't control us. We can control everybody else. We can tell them what's wrong with them, where they going, why they shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z. But when it comes to yourself, it's like, girl, I did that.
Yes.
No, I didn't do that. And you be like, yes, you did. You just told so and so. And it's like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know I even did that. Lack of self-awareness, and it's
Yes.
lack of self-control, and it's lack of self-discipline. But we are so quick to point out everybody else's flaws, everybody else.
So true. And I was always told that when you're pointing the finger at somebody, you're pointing three back at yourself.
Yep.
And then also that the thing that we see in other people that we like or don't like is the issue in us that we don't want to face. And that was a hard truth when I started my healing journey, that was a hard truth when somebody said that to me, because I remember being in the room saying, I want to blame, like my mom or my sister. And um, I just remember this person looking right at me and said, okay, that's nice, but what about you? And I was like, oh, okay, ouch. And ever since then, it was like, yes, what about you? And that's when I stopped asking the questions like, why me? And saying, what about me do I see? Or what about me do I want to change? And that's hard, for people, because the truth is uncomfortable when we have to look at the hard decisions and the choices that we had made. So that can be another thing that can lead us into isolation, because we don't want to admit that truth, that I made that mistake, or, that I was in that predicament, or that I actually do the same thing. But once you break through and rip that, remember, all cuts heal, so they all heal. And the scars are just indicators that you grown. Like with the stretch marks, we get stretch marks when we have babies. That's because we created a new life. We brought forth something new. And
Yeah.
that's something to look at with beauty and not shame. And so many of us don't like the truth of some of the choices that we had made. So then we'll
Mhm.
isolate instead in order to cover it up, even though you're not covering up, because just how you can point something out in other people, best believe they could point it out in you if they really wanted to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always tell people that relationships are mirrors in every aspect. In every aspect. So when you are looking or talking to someone, you are gaining your own sight from them. So the stuff that you don't like, if you ever sat down, spend a little time with yourself, you'll see you also hold it.
Yes.
You can recognize it because you possess it. You don't recognize it just because they're doing it.
Right.
You eat some food from somebody and it's like, oh, I taste nutmeg. Why? Because you know what it tastes like.
Right.
If you didn't know what it tastes like, you couldn't recognize it.
So true. Yep.
So that thing that you see in your person that you're talking to, friend, family, relationship, so spouse or what have you, the thing that you don't like in them, you recognize it because it exists in you.
Yes. Absolutely.
So if you don't like it in them, fix it in you.
Yes. And you'd be amazed when you fix yourself the way that you want to be, you don't have to worry about what others think, because they will flee.
Yeah.
If they don't like the new you, who you are, who you really are, let them go. Don't
Yeah.
hold on to them dead leaves. Let them go.
Yeah. A lot of times people find it difficult to let stuff go because they feel like it's the FOMO, fear of missing out, fear of not seeing, fear of not knowing. And it's like, why do you care?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you care? You get out of a bad relationship. Why do you keep them as Facebook friends? You anything dismantle. Why do you keep the attachments, the memories, the memorabilia? Why are we keeping it? Why do you need to remind yourself? Your memory itself is enough.
Yes.
You don't need the tangibles.
So
Now,
true.
some of y'all may need a tangible for a couple of things that you need to know. Don't go back to that. So when you see it, it reminds you. But the majority of us are holding on to stuff just for the sake of it.
So true. Yes.
How do you let go an isolating, solely independent spirit? How do you let that go?
You let it go one step at a time. Don't try to let everything go at once, because when you let too much go, then you tend to pick stuff back up. So start with
Mm,
one thing at a time, one step at a time, one walk, one change, one thought pattern. do it until you get comfortable and then let something else go. Because when we do it all at once, then you're going to start picking stuff back up, because then you're like, wait a minute,
I'm
now I'm
empty.
complete. Yep.
I'm empty.
And then
You
replace
have to
whatever you let
replace it.
go. Yes.
Yeah, you have to replace
with
it. I think that's the one thing we don't like to acknowledge, is that you do have to replace it with something, or something will fill it in. You know what I mean? And it may not be the thing you need to be filling it in, because you left it so empty. You know, even when it comes to your mouth, when your teeth fall out, if another one don't come in, the doctor immediately tell you, or the dentist, y'all know, same thing.
Mhm.
You need to get a bridge, or you need to get an implant, or you got to do something, because the space ain't healthy for it. Your mouth needs what was supposed to be there. It needs it there. And so when you're, eliminating the unhealthy, you should be replacing it with something healthy.
Yes. So, and you got to try different things. If you don't like reading a book, try an audiobook. Sometimes listening is better than just sitting down and reading. If you don't like walking at the park, go walk around the gym. I know they got free community centers everywhere that you can walk around the gym or the track, so you don't have to make a full investment before you decide if you like it. So you just got to try one thing. If you don't like one park, go to the lake. There's all different types of things that we could try, but replace it and just keep trying until you find what you like to replace it that's healthy.
Yeah. In other words, don't stop.
Yeah.
So if the listeners wanted to get in contact with you and they say, you know what, good old Jayna had a couple of good pointers, I might need to connect with her, how could they do that?
Connect with me on Facebook, Jayna K. Palmer. That is my primary site right now. And just send me a request. I do have a public profile. Send me a request and I will happily connect with you.
Awesome. All of her actual socials or email or website will be in the notes of the show, so don't forget to check them out. Remember, we're here because we belong. Self-love is the blueprint, and you should love yourself so much that love from others is a bonus. Independence may be required, but isolation is not an option. Do not isolate. Always ask for help. Remember, in immediate emergency, hit 988, not 911, when it comes to your mental health. Again, it is Transformation Tuesday. Don't forget to transform. Let's not stay the same. Have a good day. This is Correctors.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.